Welcome back. This channel exists because of your support. Subscribe, hit like, and share your thoughts in the comments. Now let's get into the story. I don't want your last name anymore. The words detonated across Aunt Dorothy's terrace like a grenade rolled under the buffet table. 40 people mid-bite, mid-sip, mid-conversation. Everything stopped. Forks froze above plates of smoked salmon. Champagne glasses hung suspended in the air. Even the breeze off Lake Washington seemed to pause. My son stood there, 17 years old, wearing a $2,000 jacket Stephen had bought him last week. Shoulders back, chin up, looking right at me with eyes that held no doubt, no hesitation. Just certainty. The kind of certainty only teenagers and fools possess. Stephen says you're stuck in the past. He's the man I want to be like. He's successful. He's respected. You're just maintaining. The word hung there. Maintaining. Like I was a janitor sweeping floors in my own life. Around the terrace, reactions rippled outward. Stephen's adult daughter, Kimberly, looked down at her plate. My cousin Bradley's jaw tightened. Aunt Dorothy set her glass down carefully, like she was defusing something explosive. And then Melissa, my ex-wife, raised her champagne flute, tilted it toward me with that rehearsed smile I'd seen 1,000 times during our marriage. The one that said she'd already won something I didn't know we were competing for. To new beginnings, she said, and choosing your own path. Stephen put his arm around Connor's shoulders. Proud of you, son. The terrace was still silent. Waiting. Everyone watching me. Gordon, my father, 78 years old and still sharp as the day he founded Brennan Pharmacy in 1968, started to stand. His face had gone red. I caught his eye and gave the smallest shake of my head. He sat back down, but his hands gripped the armrests of his chair hard enough that his knuckles went white. I reached into my jacket pocket, pulled out the envelope I'd brought, just in case, because I'd known. Maybe not the exact words Connor would use, but I'd known this moment was coming. Had known since he started calling Stephen Dad to his friends 6 months ago. Since Melissa changed her name back to Walsh 2 weeks after the divorce papers were signed. Since Connor stopped responding to my messages, but tagged his new family in every Instagram post. I stood up, walked the 10 feet to where Connor stood basking in his moment of declaration, placed the envelope on the table in front of him, set my pen down next to it. You've thought this through? I asked. Yeah, I have. Connor's voice was strong, confident. This is who I am now. Then make it official. Sign here. He looked down at the envelope, then back at me. What is this? Legal waiver of the Brennan name. If you're renouncing it, do it properly. Melissa laughed. That nervous little laugh she always made when she was trying to control a situation. Rick, this is unnecessary. It's just a name change form for the school. No, this makes it binding. I kept my eyes on Connor. Sign it if you mean it. He grabbed the pen. Of course he did. He'd made his announcement in front of 40 people. He'd backed himself into a corner constructed entirely of his own pride and Stephen's money. There was no backing down now without looking weak. Connor scrawled his name across the bottom of the waiver like he was autographing a football. The signature slanted left, rushed, eager. He slid the paper back across the table. Done. I'm Connor Walsh now. He looked at me with something close to pity. Feel better, Rick? I folded the paper, put it back in the envelope, tucked it into my jacket pocket. Your choice was witnessed. That's what matters. I buttoned my jacket, walked toward the terrace steps. Behind me, I heard Aunt Dorothy's voice, quiet but sharp. Melissa, did you review that document? It's theatrics, Melissa said. Rick being dramatic. Melissa, my father's voice cut in. You should have called me first. I didn't turn around, didn't look back, just walked down the steps, across the lawn, to my car parked in the circular driveway. Got in, started the engine. In the rearview mirror, I could see them all still standing there on the terrace. Stephen with his arms still around Connor's shoulders. Melissa smiling. The Brennan side of the family sitting very still, very quiet. I drove home. The house in Bellevue was quiet. It always was now. No teenage footsteps on the stairs. No music bleeding through walls. No arguments about curfews or car keys or college applications. Just the low hum of the refrigerator and the distant bark of Mrs. Park's dog next door. I poured myself 2 fingers of scotch. No ice, no water. Sat down at my desk in the study, pulled the envelope from my pocket and laid it flat under the lamp. Connor's signature stared back at me, cocky and diagonal. Done without hesitation, without reading the document. without understanding what he'd just activated. I opened my safe, pulled out the family charter, the thick leather binder that held 28 years of carefully constructed protection, closed the safe door, turned to Section 7. 4. The clause was 8 years old. I'd added it when Connor was 9, right after I'd explained the trust structure to him over dinner at Daniel's Steakhouse downtown. He'd been on his phone the entire time, barely listening, saying, "Yeah, whatever," when I asked if he understood. Even then, I'd known. Some part of me had known. I picked up my landline. The call was answered on the first ring. "Rick." Patricia Valdez's voice was calm, alert. She'd been my estate attorney for 15 years, had handled my divorce, my business restructuring, and the delicate addition of Protocol 7 to the trust documents. "I want to initiate Section 7. 4, I said. "Effective immediately." There was a pause. A real one. The kind where you could hear someone opening a file in their mind and reading through the implications. She exhaled. "Rick, that disinherits him retroactively. It voids all held allocations. Education, healthcare, succession rights. Everything. You know that?" "Yes." "He's 17. He's 17 and 6 months. Old enough to make this choice under Washington law. Old enough to sign a legal document in front of 40 witnesses after making a public declaration of severance." I stared at Connor's signature. That's what he asked for. Another pause. "Understood. I'll initiate the sequence. Would you like to notify the advisory board yourself, or should I handle it?" "You handle it quietly. I'll draft a follow-up for the family council." "Copy that." The line went dead. No condolences. No questions about whether I was sure. Patricia had learned years ago that when I made a decision, I'd already run every scenario, every consequence, every possible outcome. I turned to my computer, opened the encrypted folder labeled Trust Administration, started moving files. Connor's beneficiary documents went into the inactive directory. Each click felt mechanical. Necessary. College fund. Healthcare access. Property succession. Business voting rights. One by one, I moved them all. At 6:47 the next morning, I logged into the estate management platform. 3-factor authentication. Thumbprint. Retinal scan. Passphrase. The name endures. The system opened. There he was in the beneficiary structure module. Connor Elliott Brennan. Status. Active. I clicked Edit. Changed the status to Void. Voluntary name severance. Section 7. 4. A red flag appeared next to his name. The system asked for confirmation. This action cannot be undone. I entered the master override password, the one Patricia had made me memorize and never write down. Hit enter. Done. Just like that, Connor ceased to exist inside the legal universe I'd spent 28 years building. To the outside world, he was still a high school senior with 12,000 Instagram followers and pending admission to the University of Washington. But to the Brennan Family Trust, he was a ghost. A name that no longer matched. A non-entity. The changes propagated automatically. Lake Property Access Codes, revoked. Family Foundation Scholarship, withdrawn. Business succession shares, reallocated. Healthcare coverage, terminated. Trust disbursement accounts, closed. All of it tied to one thread. You carry the name, you carry the key. You drop the name, the door shuts behind you. Forever. My phone buzzed at 10:17. Patricia's message was clinical. Professional. Per your directive, Section 7. For activation has propagated to all linked structures. Connor Brennan's renunciation is legally recognized as surrender of claim. He holds no residual beneficiary status. No further action required unless reversal protocol is initiated. I read the last line twice. Reversal protocol. It existed, technically. Required full board vote plus unanimous family council approval. Unanimous. I'd built the structure that way on purpose. Because once someone like Connor decided the name meant nothing, there was no going back. No apology big enough. No amount of regret that could rebuild what had been voluntarily destroyed. I closed my laptop. Went to work. Connor felt it on Tuesday morning. Small at first. Like a pebble in your shoe you don't notice until you've walked a mile. He tried to buy coffee before school. His debit card declined. He tried again. Same result. Confused, he checked his phone. The account was closed. Not overdrawn. Closed. At lunch, he called the bank. "There's an error on my account," he said. "It says it's closed?" The representative typed something. "I'm showing this account was administratively closed by the trust holder on Monday. You'll need to contact Pacific Northwest Trust Company." Connor hung up. stared at his phone, tried to process what that meant. Probably just my dad being petty, he told his friend Jeremy at lunch. Stephen will handle it. By Wednesday, the email arrived. Connor was in AP History when his phone vibrated. Dear Connor, we have received notification that the Brennan Family Educational Trust, previously designated for your enrollment, has been withdrawn. Your financial aid package will be recalculated without this funding source. Please contact our office to discuss options. Your current obligation for fall semester would be $28,400. He read it 3 times. Showed it to Jeremy. Your dad actually canceled your college fund? Jeremy's eyes were wide. Connor felt something cold settle in his stomach. He can't do that. That money was set aside for me. After school, he showed Melissa the email. She was in the kitchen of the penthouse, unpacking groceries that cost more than most people's car payments. She read the email. Her face went pale. He can't do that. Her voice was tight. That money was set aside for you. Can he actually do this? Connor heard the edge in his own voice. I'll call my lawyer. Melissa set her phone on the counter. This is ridiculous. You're still his son. Stephen said UW was beneath me anyway. Connor tried to sound confident. He's got connections at. Connor, shut up for a second. Melissa's hand was shaking slightly. Let me think. She called her divorce attorney. Put it on speaker. Rick is canceling Connor's trust fund. Melissa's voice had that sharp edge she got when she was losing control. Can he do that? The attorney's response was measured. What trust fund? The divorce settlement didn't include any trust assets. Those were separate. But Connor's college money was never part of marital assets. If Rick established a trust with his own premarital funds, that's his to manage. A pause. Did something trigger this? Melissa hesitated. Connor changed his name. Rick asked him to sign something. Melissa. The attorney's voice changed. What did Connor sign? Some paper Rick had. Connor wanted to make a statement. I need to see that document. Today. Do you have a copy? No. Melissa's voice was small now. Rick took it. Then you need to get one. Immediately. The call ended. Melissa stood there, staring at her phone. Connor watched her. Mom. She looked at him. Really looked at him. For the first time since the brunch, he saw something in her face that scared him. Not anger. Fear. What did we do? She whispered. Thursday morning, Julie Sanderson called. Connor was in the shower when his phone rang. Melissa answered. Mrs. Walsh, we need to discuss Connor's scholarship status. Stephen was drinking coffee, reading the Wall Street Journal. He glanced up when Melissa put it on speaker. What about it? Stephen's voice was casual. The Brennan Educational Foundation has withdrawn his scholarship for next year. Julie's voice was apologetic but firm. This covers $35,000 of his annual tuition. We were also notified his family trust designation has changed. How is that legal? Melissa's voice cracked. He's been awarded that scholarship since freshman year. The foundation scholarship is renewable annually and requires maintained family standing. According to their letter, Connor voluntarily withdrew from the Brennan family structure. Stephen set his coffee down hard. That's discrimination. You can't revoke a scholarship because of a name change. Mr. Walsh, the Brennan Educational Foundation is a private entity with specific beneficiary requirements. They have alternate recipients identified. Julie paused. I'm required to notify you that Connor's remaining tuition balance for senior year is $17,500, due by August 15th. Melissa gripped the edge of the counter. Rick is doing this to punish Connor. Mrs. Walsh. Julie's voice was gentle. I've been in education for 23 years. I suggest you review whatever document Connor signed very carefully. The foundation board mentioned it was executed voluntarily with witnesses. The call ended. The kitchen was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. That vindictive bastard. Stephen's face was red. He can't cut off his own son. Stephen, this is serious. Melissa's hands were shaking. That's almost $200,000 in education costs. Melissa, relax. Stephen waved his hand dismissively. I'll write a check. Connor can go to any school he wants. Rick's just making noise. You don't understand. Melissa's voice was rising. If Rick really put something in that waiver, what's he going to do? Take back Connor's DNA? Stephen laughed. The kid signed a piece of paper. So what? But Melissa wasn't laughing. She was staring at nothing, doing math in her head. Math that wasn't adding up the way she'd thought it would. By Friday, she was sitting in Patricia Valdez's office downtown. The building was old Seattle money. Quiet. Expensive. The kind of place where people spoke in low voices about eight-figure estates. Patricia slid a document across her desk. Certificate of Voluntary Name Severance and Trust Withdrawal. Melissa read it. Her hands started shaking before she finished the first page. He didn't understand this. Her voice was barely a whisper. He's 17. He's 17 and signed in front of 40 witnesses after making a public declaration. Patricia's voice held no emotion, including his mother's support. I thought Rick was just being dramatic. Melissa looked up. I didn't think he'd actually. Mrs. Walsh, your ex-husband spent 28 years building a structure specifically designed to protect family legacy. The trust has always had beneficiary requirements. Connor was informed of these when he turned 16. She paused. Do you remember the dinner where Rick explained the trust terms? Melissa did remember. Vaguely. Rick had taken Connor to Daniel's Steakhouse downtown. Connor had been on his phone the whole time, barely listening. Rick had explained something about the trust, about requirements, about the name. Connor had said, yeah, whatever, I'm not signing anything anyway. Connor was a child then, Melissa said. He's legally able to renounce a surname in Washington state. Patricia opened another folder. What he signed isn't unusual. What's unusual is that he did it voluntarily, publicly, and with clear intent. Your statements supporting his decision are documented. We can undo this. Melissa heard the desperation in her own voice. Connor will apologize. He'll change his name back. The clause is irrevocable. Patricia's eyes were steady. It's designed that way specifically to prevent manipulation. Once triggered, it's permanent. How much are we talking about? Patricia slid another sheet across the desk. Melissa read it. The numbers swam. 8.5 million. For 100,000. 12 million. The totals at the bottom. $23 million over Connor's lifetime. Her hand went to her mouth. Steven said Rick was just a warehouse manager. Patricia's expression didn't change. Mr. Brennan owns 68% of a medical supply distribution company with contracts in 4 states and annual revenue of $80 million. The business has no debt and returns 15% profit yearly. He chose a modest lifestyle. That doesn't mean he lacks resources. Can I contest this? On what grounds? You encouraged Connor's decision publicly. You signed away claims to trust assets in your divorce. Connor signed voluntarily. Patricia leaned forward slightly. What exactly would you contest? Melissa stood up, walked out without responding. That night, she showed Steven the summary. He stared at it for a long time. Jesus, Rick's been hiding millions? He didn't hide anything. Melissa's voice was hollow. I didn't ask the right questions during the divorce. I was so angry I just wanted out. Okay, so Connor lost a trust fund. Steven set the paper down. I'll set one up for him. Problem solved. Melissa looked at him. Steven, do you have $8 million liquid? Well, no, but my portfolio. Your portfolio is mostly leveraged real estate. You told me yourself you're carrying $140 million in debt against $200 million in properties. That's how real estate works, Melissa. Steven's voice had an edge now. It's called OPM. Other people's money. Connor just gave up $23 million in guaranteed money for. What? Melissa gestured around the penthouse. Your connections? Your lifestyle? I give him a better life than Rick ever did. Steven stood up. The penthouse, the clothes, the car. Those are things, Steven. Melissa's voice broke. Rick gave him infrastructure. So we'll fix it. Steven was pacing now. Connor will apologize. Rick will calm down. The lawyer said it's irrevocable. Everything is negotiable. Rick's just posturing. But even Steven's voice lacked conviction. Connor didn't understand. Not really. Not yet. He understood that his bank account was closed. He understood that his scholarship was gone. He understood that his college fund had evaporated. But he didn't understand the depth, the permanence, the totality of what he'd done. On Saturday, he drove to my house in Bellevue, the house where he'd grown up, where I'd taught him to ride a bike in the driveway, where we'd spent countless Saturdays working on science projects at the kitchen table. He pulled up to the gate, punched in his code. Access denied. He tried again. Same result. He got out of his car, pressed the call button on the intercom. Waited. Nothing. He stood there for 2 hours. Just stood there, staring at the house. At the windows where lights had always been on. At the garage where we'd built a Pinewood Derby car when he was 8. At the study window where I'd helped him with college essays until he'd decided Steven's connections would work better than his own effort. Mrs. Park came out walking her dog. She was 72, Korean, had lived next door for 30 years. Connor, honey, your father isn't home. Her voice was gentle. He's at the cabin. I tried calling. Connor's voice cracked. He won't pick up. He's been very quiet since the brunch. Mrs. Park looked at him sadly. People talk, you know. What you said was very hurtful. I was just being honest. Connor felt defensive. Stephen has done more for me than. Stephen bought you things. Mrs. Park's voice was firm. Your father built you a future. There's a difference. She walked away. Connor sat in his car until the sun went down. Then he drove back to the penthouse. Monday morning, Gordon showed up at the penthouse. Unannounced. Uninvited. Melissa answered the door in her yoga clothes. Froze when she saw him. Gordon, we need to talk about Connor. She let him in because refusing Gordon Brennan wasn't something you did. Not if you'd grown up in Seattle. Not if you knew anything about the quiet, old money that ran this city. He sat down on the white leather sofa that cost more than his first car. Melissa, if you're here to lecture me, I'm here to tell you what you cost my grandson. Gordon's voice was steel wrapped in velvet. Not because I'm angry. Because you need to understand. Gordon, I started Brennan Pharmacy in 1968 with $8,000 and a lease I couldn't afford. He wasn't looking at her. He was looking past her, at memories. I worked 18-hour days for 20 years. When Rick took over, he transformed it into a distribution company. We now supply equipment to 140 hospitals and 600 clinics. Gordon, Melissa tried to interrupt. When I die, my shares go into the trust for my grandchildren. Gordon pulled out a document, laid it on the coffee table. Connor was set to receive 15% at age 25. That's worth $12 million today. More by the time he's 40. Gordon, Connor was just being a teenager. Connor renounced the family. Gordon's voice cut through her excuses like a scalpel. In front of witnesses. With legal documentation. You smiled and raised your glass. I thought Rick was overreacting. Rick was protecting what 3 generations built. Gordon stood up. You think Stephen's penthouse is wealth? This is wealth. He gestured at the document. The trust owns 8 medical buildings. We hold patents on 3 distribution logistics systems. We have contracts locked in for 15 years. Connor walked away from becoming a millionaire to impress a man who leases his lifestyle. Stephen owns his properties. But Melissa's voice was weak. Stephen has $140 million in debt. I checked. Gordon headed toward the door. I'm old, Melissa, not stupid. Your new husband is 1 market correction away from bankruptcy. My grandson traded real money for a mirage. He paused at the door. Connor's not a bad kid. He's just a stupid one. And you let him be stupid because you were angry at Rick for being boring. His eyes were hard. Well, congratulations. Your son is now boring and poor. He left. Melissa stood there for a long time. Then she sat down and cried. Wednesday afternoon, Connor went to Brennan Medical Supply. The building was in Bellevue, modern but understated. The kind of place you'd drive past without noticing unless you knew what happened inside. He walked into the lobby. The receptionist looked up and smiled. Then her smile faltered. I'm sorry, Mr. Brennan is in meetings all day. I'll wait. She looked uncomfortable, but nodded. Connor sat in the lobby for 4 hours. Watched employees come and go. Delivery drivers checking in. Salespeople heading out. All of them moving through a world that had once been meant to be his. At 3:30, Dr. Helen Carmichael walked through. She was 55, had been Rick's CFO for 12 years, had known Connor since he was in elementary school. She saw him. Stopped. Connor, you shouldn't be here. He stood up. I need to talk to my dad. Dr. Carmichael, please. I made a mistake. Helen looked at him for a long moment. Connor, I've known you since you were 9 years old. Your father brought you to the office every Saturday. You'd sit in the warehouse and reorganize boxes by color. You love this place. I still do. Connor's voice broke. You just told 40 people, including your grandfather, that this business means nothing to you. Helen's voice was sad. That the name means nothing. Your father heard you. I was trying to make Stephen happy. I didn't know that actions have consequences. Connor, you're 17, not 7. You signed a legal document in front of witnesses. She tilted her head. What did you think would happen? Can you talk to him? Please. I handle the finances, Connor. Helen started walking toward the elevators. The trust clause you triggered was my recommendation. I told Rick 8 years ago to protect the business from exactly this scenario. I've seen too many family companies destroyed by entitled children who think legacy is guaranteed. You proved me right. So that's it. Connor followed her. I'm just cut off forever? You cut yourself off. Helen pressed the elevator button. Your father just honored your choice. The elevator doors opened. She stepped inside. Connor stood there as the doors closed. He waited until 7. Rick never came out. Later, he learned that Rick had left through the parking garage at 4. The next morning, Connor tries one more time. He knows where Rick goes on the second Wednesday of every month. Greenwood Memorial Park, where Rick's mother is buried. Connor has been there before, years ago, for the funeral. He finds Rick kneeling by the gravestone, placing fresh flowers. White roses. The same kind Rick's mother grew in her garden. Connor approaches slowly. His footsteps on the gravel path announce him. I've been trying to reach you for 2 weeks. Rick doesn't turn around. I know. We need to talk about the trust. There's nothing to talk about. Dad, I made a mistake. Connor's voice cracks. I was angry and stupid. I didn't understand. Rick turns. Slowly. His face is calm, but his eyes are tired. You understood perfectly. You understood that Steven has a penthouse and I have a warehouse. You understood that his cars are newer and his clothes are more expensive. You understood that his lifestyle looks better on social media. What you didn't understand is how any of that was paid for. I know now. I've learned. You've learned that actions have prices. Rick stands up, brushes dirt from his knees. That's a valuable lesson. So you're really going to cut me off? Forever? Connor, I'm not cutting you off. You cut yourself. I asked you if you'd thought it through. You said yes. You signed a legal document. You posted about it online. You celebrated it. What part of that was unclear? I thought you were being dramatic. Connor takes a step closer. Like, making a point. I don't make points. I build structures. Rick's voice is steady. And you chose to step outside the structure. Can't you just undo it? I'll change my name back. I'll apologize to Grandpa. I'll work at the company for free. The document is irrevocable. That was explained before you signed. You tricked me. I handed you a pen and told you to make it official if you meant it. Rick shakes his head. You grabbed that pen like it was a trophy. You wanted the moment, Connor. You got it. Connor's eyes fill with tears. Dad, please. I'm sorry. I'll do anything. Then be Connor Walsh. Rick's voice is quiet but final. Build your own legacy. Steven will show you how. That's what you wanted, wasn't it? To be his son? Rick walks past him, down the gravel path, toward the parking lot. Connor stands by the grave for a long time, staring at the flowers, at the name carved in stone, at permanence. Thursday was Connor's graduation. The ceremony was at the prep school's auditorium. 400 people. Families dressed up, taking pictures, celebrating. I didn't go. Gordon went. He sat in the back, far from Melissa and Steven. During the ceremony, they announced scholarship awards. Connor's name was called for several, but not the Brennan Educational Foundation Scholarship. For the first time in 4 years, that went to someone else. When Connor walked across the stage to get his diploma, he scanned the audience. Looking for me. I wasn't there. After the ceremony, he found Gordon in the parking lot. Grandpa, is Dad here? No, Connor. He's not. Did you tell him about graduation? He knew. Gordon's voice was flat. He chose not to come. Because I'm not a Brennan anymore? Because you said you weren't. Gordon looked at his grandson. Your father believes people. It's one of his strengths. Melissa tried to approach. Gordon walked away without speaking to her. The photo from that day shows Connor between Melissa and Steven. Steven's arm around his shoulders. Connor staring at the camera with no smile. No joy. Just the hollow look of someone who's beginning to understand the price of things. The photo was never posted to social media. Friday, a letter arrived for Connor. Hand-delivered by courier. He opened it in his room, alone. Connor, by now you understand what you signed a few weeks ago. You felt the consequences. You've tried to apologize. You want to undo your choice. I want you to know, I'm not angry. I never was. I was disappointed, but not surprised. You've been moving toward this moment since your mother and I divorced. She remarried quickly. You found a new family. You wanted to belong to something that looked more impressive than what I built. I understand that impulse. I don't respect it, but I understand it. What you signed wasn't a punishment. It was a mirror. You said the Brennan name meant nothing to you. The trust structure agreed with you. If the name means nothing, why should it carry benefits? You asked me at the cemetery if I'm really going to cut you off forever. I'm not cutting you off from anything. You're my son biologically. That doesn't change. What changed is your relationship to the legacy 3 generations built. You publicly renounced it. In front of witnesses. With legal documentation. The structure responded accordingly. Could I override the trust? Legally, yes. With board approval and family consent, I could restructure the documents. But I won't. Not because I'm spiteful, but because the lesson you're learning is more valuable than the money you lost. You'll go to college somewhere. You'll build a life. And every step of the way, you'll understand what things cost. You'll understand that choices have weight. You'll understand that legacy isn't something you inherit. It's something you earn and protect. Stephen will help you, I'm sure. He promised you a better life. Hold him to that promise. The Brennan Medical Supply building will still be in Bellevue. The cabin will still be on Orcas Island. The trust will still grow. None of it will have your name on it. Not because I removed you, but because you removed yourself. If you become successful, and I hope you do, you'll build your own legacy. Your children, if you have them, will carry whatever name you choose. Maybe they'll ask about their grandfather. You can tell them I was a loser, like you told 40 people at a brunch. Or you can tell them the truth, that I built something worth protecting, and I protected it when you decided you didn't want it. You're free now, Connor. No expectations. No pressure. No legacy to uphold. Stephen will teach you what that freedom is worth. Rick. Connor read it 3 times. Sat on his bed, holding the paper, feeling the weight of every word. He didn't show it to Melissa or Stephen. 3 months later, September arrived. Connor started community college. Stephen's liquidity issues had prevented the university enrollment. The penthouse felt different now. Less like home, more like a hotel where Connor was an extended guest who'd overstayed his welcome. He worked part-time at Stephen's property management office. Filing. Basic tasks. Minimum wage plus the awkward discomfort of knowing his stepfather had promised him so much more. Melissa had taken a part-time job. First time working in 13 years. She was a receptionist at a dental office. She never mentioned it to her friends. Stephen's business was under pressure. The bank wanted to see better numbers. There was talk of downsizing from the penthouse. Quiet talk, late at night, when they thought Connor couldn't hear. Connor still used the name Brennan legally. But socially, at school, at work, people called him Walsh. He existed in a strange, in-between space. Not quite one thing, not quite the other. His Instagram was mostly quiet now. The viral video of him renouncing his father's name had 89,000 views. The comments were brutal. He deleted most of his other posts. His friend group from prep school had moved on to universities. They still texted sometimes, but less and less. He was the one who stayed behind while they went forward. On a Saturday in late September, I was at the Brennan Medical Supply warehouse. Early morning, before the sun was fully up. I liked it that way. Quiet. Peaceful. Just me and the inventory and the smell of cardboard and possibility. Uncle Rick? I turned. Emma was there. Bradley's daughter. 12 years old, wearing jeans and a Brennan Medical Supply t-shirt 3 sizes too big. Why are these organized by color? She was looking at a shelf of equipment. Someone thought it made more sense that way. I smiled. A long time ago. That's silly. Emma shook her head seriously. They should be by product type. You're right. Want to help me fix it? Yeah. She grinned. Can I use the forklift? Not until you're 16. But you can use the cart. We worked together for a while. The warehouse slowly filling with morning light. The sound of boxes being moved, reorganized, made right. Uncle Rick? Emma's voice was small. Yes. Dad said Connor used to come here on Saturdays. He did. Why doesn't he anymore? He found something he liked better. Emma looked around at the warehouse. At the high ceilings and the organized shelves and the quiet purpose of it all. What's better than this? She sounded genuinely confused. This is the best. I thought so too. Is Connor coming to Thanksgiving at Orcas? No, Emma. He's not. She thought about that for a moment, then shrugged. Good. More pie for us. I smiled. First time in months that it felt real. We kept working as the morning light filled the warehouse. Outside, the city was waking up. People were starting their days, making their choices, building their futures, or dismantling them. In here, it was just me and Emma and the work. The good, honest work of organizing things. Of putting them in their proper place. Of understanding that everything has value, but only if you know how to protect it. Connor was out there somewhere, living his choice, learning the cost of things, building whatever future a person can build when they've walked away from the one that was carefully constructed for them. I hoped he'd be okay. Really, I did. He was still my son. That hadn't changed. But he wasn't a Brennan. Not in the way that mattered. Not in the way the trust understood. Not in the way 3 generations had built that name to mean something beyond just letters on a birth certificate. Emma found a box that was labeled wrong. Brought it over to me. This one's in the wrong spot, Uncle Rick. Good eye. I took the box. Show me where it should go. She led me to the right shelf. The right category. The right place. Everything in its place. That's what my father had taught me. That's what I tried to teach Connor. That's what Emma was learning now, without even realizing it. Outside, the sun was fully up now. The day had begun. Inside the warehouse, we kept working. Organizing. Building. Protecting what mattered. The name endures. If you choose to carry it. Dear listeners, that's our ending. If it resonated, subscribe to support the channel. See you next time.